you for coming this evening and for inviting me. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam. Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today is the day we celebrate relationships, and I'm going to speak tonight about our relationship with Krishna and loving relationships also amongst the devotees, particularly the greatest devotees of Lord Krishna, the gopis, and how they shared their loving exchanges with the Lord. To do this, I'll need to share my screen. May I have that permission from the administrator, please?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay, great. Very good. So tonight I'd like to speak about this topic, spiritual relationships, in terms of how Krishna loves his devotees and how love can be exchanged between people in different ways. The spirit of love means giving more of oneself than taking in return. And as we mature as human beings, as devotees, we learn that this is the highest pleasure of life, giving love to others, not taking for ourselves. This is the simple message of civilized human beings, the simple understanding, which is augmented by our Krishna conscious understanding, how giving love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead brings us the highest happiness. Because after all, if we pour water on the root of the tree, all the leaves are automatically nourished, the leaves, twigs, and branches. And if, in the same way, if we love Krishna, all of his beloved parts and parcels are also loved and pleased. In the beginning stages of our spiritual life, we're still tinged with the passion and ignorance that comes with association with the modes of nature. And one of the symptoms of passion and ignorance is that we see distinctions between people according to their material bodies, whether they're male or female, old or young, white or black, tall or short, this nationality, that ethnicity. All these divisions are results of the mode of passion. When Bhishma Dev, the great Mahajan, the great authority in Krishna consciousness, was leaving his body, lying upon the bed of arrows, piercing his body, his mortal flesh, and he was completely disabled, Krishna came to see him. And at that time, seeing Krishna before him, he had this realization. My whole life, I have seen people according to their bodies, but now, my Lord, I see them as parts and parcels of yourself. Just as a single sun is reflected in countless water pots and thus appears to be completely multifarious and numerous, yet the single sun is one in itself. Similarly, you, Krishna, are one in yourself, and yet you are manifest in the hearts of countless living beings. So now, upon leaving my body, upon leaving this world, I'm recognizing how it is you who is present in everyone. Not that everyone is you, but you are in the heart of each and every person. And therefore, I no longer see them according to the bodily differences. I see them in relation to you. Love is appreciated by everybody, mundane and spiritual. But for the transcendentalists, for the bhaktas, for the devotees of Krishna, love takes on yet another dimension, a spiritual dimension that comes from a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna discusses the subject of love in the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. As Ramachandra Prabhu mentioned, I have a poetic rendition of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was written in a way to recreate the experience for an English-speaking person who might have been sitting there at Naimisharanya listening to Shukadev Goswami narrate. What would it be like? He was speaking in Sanskrit, but what would he have been saying were he speaking in English? To the very limited best of my efforts, I have tried to recreate that in English by going verse by verse through the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto and other cantos, and translating each verse, rendering it into a metered and poetic style. The original Sanskrit is metered, much of it is poetic as well, or rhyming, but the main thrust of it is the various meters are used to communicate different feelings from different speakers. So in the section we're going to read tonight about Krishna and the gopis, we'll be talking about the subject of loving relationships. I'm going to read and then comment as we go along. So I'll put this up on the screen in hopes everybody can see and follow along. This section of the 10th canto, the chapters of the Rasa Lila, begin with this very interesting oxymoron. As fall arrived, the springtime jasmine kissed the evening air. Anyone notice something unusual about that? It's fall, and yet the jasmine is blooming, the springtime jasmine, you see. So Krishna was creating the perfect atmosphere, completely out of season, for the loving exchanges that are to come. As fall arrived, the springtime jasmine kissed the evening air, and Krishna schemed with loving dreams for his unique affairs. The moon adorned the eastern sky with soothing garnet rays, a husband bringing kumkum to his wife to dress her face. The moonbeams turned vermilion, lit the woods, and drew the blooms of reddish lotus flowers, which in turn shared their perfume. With pleasure, Krishna placed a bamboo flute upon his lips and played a tune the cowherd girls of Raj could not resist. These gopis, busy milking cows or tending to their stoves, with boiling milk pots set on top and baking cakes below, found Krishna's flute song pulling them away from hearth and home to search the night with hopes they might find Krishna all alone. Some gopis served out dinners, others changed and nursed their tots, and others were still getting dressed. Regardless, they all stopped. As soon as they heard Krishna's charming flute, they ran away, their duties all forgotten and their clothes in disarray. Their husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers, dashing to their doors, found out their wives and daughters had departed long before. Some gopis who could not escape and had to stay behind shut tight their eyes and thought of Krishna deep within their minds. These prisoners remembered Krishna, feeling great remorse, and thus wrapped up their karma that had yet to run its course. Their thoughts of Krishna deepened and ecstatic feelings grew till they abandoned all respect for Vedic moral rules. Said Vishnurata. Vishnurata is another name for Maharaj Parikshit. Said Vishnurata, they thought him their lover and their friend, not God himself who crafts the world and brings it to an end. How could these girls, their minds caught up in nature's ardent swells, get free of such attachment and its strong, deceptive spells? Shukadev answered, the gopis' lust is sacred, unlike that of common souls. As sages in their former lives, they practiced self-control and prayed to join with Krishna as his lovers or his mates. When meant for Krishna, lust, or even hatred, liberates. When Krishna meets the gopis and fulfills their heart's desire, he acts from great compassion, not the force of passion's fire. Since Krishna builds this mundane world in which we jivas fall, attachments that bewilder us don't bother him at all. For us, directing all our feelings straight to Nanda's son, the friendship, hatred, lust, or fear, well known to everyone, will make the thought of Krishna fill our minds quite blissfully. For love of him, the gopis left and risked their chastity. So when the gopis heard the sound of Krishna's flute, they dropped all of their duties and immediately ran to be with him. This was an expression of the highest moral, ethical, and spiritual action a person could take, because everything was set aside for Krishna. This might make us think of the Bhagavad Gita. You remember that Arjuna wanted to set aside his duties to go to the forest for meditation. He wanted to renounce the fight and go to be a mendicant, a beggar, rather than all the members of his family on the opposite side of the battlefield. And yet when the gopis gave up their service, they gave up their duties, they left all their responsibilities behind and ran to Krishna, their expression is considered the highest. And why is that? It's because Arjuna was wanting to drop his duties for material considerations, whereas the gopis dropped their duties simply out of love for Krishna. So their renunciation is complete, whereas Arjuna's was incomplete and inappropriate. Now, something we notice at this stage of this pastime, we see that all the gopis are coming to Krishna, and each one of them left in a great rush. Do you know why? Why do you think they left in such a hurry? Does anyone have any idea? If you do, please unmute yourself and speak. What were they thinking? What was in their mind?
Their family were waiting for them. They had to get back.
No, they left their family. Why did they rush out so quickly? What was their ambition? They were, shall I tell you?
Yes.
They were all thinking, I want to get to Krishna before anyone else. And I want Krishna all to myself. So let me be the first one there. And I can have Krishna all to myself. So this is why, without any premeditation or without any thought of wrapping up their duties, they just left. So when they came to Krishna, Krishna would have faked or feigned being surprised. So what are you doing here? Don't you know it's dangerous out in the jungle? Don't you realize there are dangerous predators prowling about? You should be home safely with your husbands and your families. So the gopis who had risked their reputations, risked their chastity to come and be with Krishna, were not pleased by this statement that he made. And they looked down at the ground and they toed the ground with their feet. And they didn't leave. They refused to leave. So then Krishna, understanding their desires, agreed to spend some time with them on that beautiful moonlit autumn night. So here's what happened next. He smiled with teeth like jasmine buds. The gopis' faces bloomed, and they encircled Krishna like the stars surround the moon. When gopis by the hundreds sang his praise, the Lord replied, his presence was a garland, making all more beautified. They sauntered to the riverbank and sat in cooling sands. As lotus-perfumed breezes blew, Lord Krishna's playful hands embraced the gopis, touched their limbs, and stroked their hands and hair. They laughed and joked, invoking Cupid's arrows then and there. The gopis felt so blessed to be with Krishna, they could not avoid becoming somewhat proud. In secret, each one thought, compared to time with Krishna, what is any treasure worth? Why, I am the most fortunate of all women on earth. Lord Krishna sensed the gopis' pride and, thinking it not right, decided to desert them. So he vanished from their sight. Now, after all, what better stirs a lover's tender play than offering a taste of love, than taking it away? So then the gopis began feeling very morose and acting in a very erratic way. They started talking to the trees. Have you seen Krishna? Have you seen Krishna? Trees and other inanimate objects. They just ran frantically until the following happened. Exhausting their unstable visions, all the gopis sighed and, feeling quite discouraged, set their frantic search aside. But then, absorbed in Krishna, they began impulsively to mimic other pastimes he had shown them recently. One gopi became Putana, the giant demoness. Another became Krishna and sucked poison from her breast. Another played the demon who had hidden in a cart. Another, playing Krishna, feigned to kick it all apart. Another rendered Trinavarta, whirling round and round, while cradling a Krishna gopi. Then they both fell down. Another gopi, thinking Krishna's infancy most sweet, just crawled about the forest, anklets tinkling on her feet. Two gopis played as Ram and Krishna. Two others deployed as Vatsa, calf, and Baka, crane. In play, both were destroyed. So here are the gopis reenacting Krishna's pastimes in their madness of separation. Here you see one is lifting her veil in the middle. She's lifting her veil as if it's Govardhan Hill, and the others are dancing beneath. And one is carrying Krishna on her back like Trinavarta. As some portrayed the flute playing and sports of Nanda's son, the others watched and clapped their hands while calling out, "Well done." A gopi placed her arm around a friend and then declared, "Now I am graceful Krishna," as she sauntered here and there. "And I shall fend off Indra's wind and rain," another cried, and raised her shawl like Govardhan so other girls could hide. One gopi climbed another's back and called, "This snake is dead," portraying Krishna's dance upon Kaliya's many heads. "I've come to punish demons," she announced. Another roared, "I'll save you from this blazing forest fire. Fear no more." One gopi stole some butter as a second gave her chase, then used a flower garland to bind up her slender waist. She said, "Now I have captured this elusive butter thief." The first gopi concealed her face and shed mock tears of grief. So then the gopis ran on into the night, still trying to find Krishna. And then they discovered one particular gopi who had been alone with Krishna, Radharani. So Radharani explained, "Yes, Krishna came to me and he took me here and there, and I was thinking, I am the most fortunate woman in the world." And then he again disappeared. So then together with Radha, the gopis began singing songs of separation from Krishna, which is a beautiful chapter of the 10th canto. Afterwards, this is what happened. The gopis, having filled their ears with songs of touching themes, burst into tears, for Krishna still was nowhere to be seen. O king, their sobs for Krishna, loud and long, reflected pain and eagerness to see him they could no longer contain. And then Lord Krishna, smiling with a lotus blossom face, returned to them his yellow robes and garlands still in place. So pleased were they to see him once that moonlight night, they doubted Cupid, god of love, himself could bear the sight. The Lord who sits in every heart sat too amongst these girls and gleamed with an attractiveness esteemed throughout the worlds. The gopis rubbed his hands and feet, yet miffed with what occurred, they mixed their playful smiles and looks with apprehensive words. So Krishna has left them and put them in so much anxiety, and they don't want to disturb the situation, but they're still so curious that they have to ask the following question. Some people only love when they are loved by someone else, while others freely give their love and ask for none themselves. Still others don't love anyone, regardless of their mood. Dear Krishna, please explain to us these different attitudes. By making this inquiry, the gopis gave a hint. They felt harassed and could not grasp the evening's incidents. Why did their lover disappear, inflicting so much pain? Lord Krishna understood their minds, and as he explained. Now, my dear devotees, dear friends, please listen very carefully to these instructions of Krishna. We see the gopis have asked about these different sorts of people. Those who only love when they're loved, those who give their love regardless, and those who don't give love even when they are loved. Here's what Krishna says. Those friends who show affection but are self-absorbed at heart are not friends in the truest sense. They simply play a part in mutual self-interest. They could never show their love unless there was some profit they could take advantage of. So this is the first kind of person, somebody who will scratch our backs if we scratch theirs. Their interest in our friendship is solely based on what they can gain. And if we love them, they will love us. But otherwise, we can expect nothing from them. O slender waisted gopis, others love without concern for what they have to gain from love or get back in return. Such people may be parents, friends, or saints, but you can tell that they are truly friendly and wish everybody well. So here is the second class, people who give love for others, whether or not they get any love in return. So Krishna categorizes this type in three divisions: parents, friends, or saints. Parents love their children unconditionally by nature. The children are so dependent and helpless and cute that the parents automatically give love without expecting any reciprocation. The true friends, similarly, love us regardless of our feelings towards them. This is described in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as being the qualification of truly advanced yogis and devotees. They give love to everybody, regardless of how that love is or is not reciprocated. And finally, saints. Saints are also in that category, that they appreciate each and every spirit soul. And they see Krishna like Bhishma Dev within the heart of everyone. So all their loving relationships are based on recognizing others as Krishna's parts and parcels. The most advanced devotees, the Uttama Adhikaris, only see others as more advanced. Therefore, they feel they cannot teach anyone about Krishna consciousness because they see everyone else as more advanced than I am. So here is Krishna's description of those who give love unconditionally. And finally, here's how he describes the third category. Still others don't or can't give back the love that they receive. They don't love friends or kinsfolk, what to speak of enemies. Such people might be self-contained in spirit or in wealth, ungrateful, or just hateful towards those better than themselves. Now, this one is very interesting. The people who don't reciprocate love, even when they're given love, mostly they're described in negative categories. Ungrateful or resentful of others, or they may be self-contained. That is, they may be of sufficient depth within themselves that they really don't need the affection or approval or appreciation of others. So here again are these three types of people Krishna explains. So what do you suspect that the gopis think Krishna might be? They are thinking at this point, we're giving so much love to Krishna and he just disappears. But at the same time, they don't want to come out and say, Krishna, where did you go? They just ask very tactfully in a third-party way, what is it about some people that makes them unable to reciprocate love? So Krishna has given this answer so far very clinically, but now he's about to get more personal. He says, sometimes I too hold back my love from people who love me, for that allows their love to build still more intensively. As rich men who have lost their wealth can think of nothing else, my devotees' unanswered love refines their higher self. So let's stop there for a moment. Because all of us experience things in our lives which make us think, is Krishna really paying attention? Is Krishna really seeing my sacrifice? Is Krishna really reciprocating with my devotion? Why am I getting these negative things happening in my life, these difficulties, these setbacks, these painful events? But here Krishna explains that. Even when he is loved, as a way of reciprocating his love, he makes himself absent, because that intensifies the devotee's hankering for Krishna. This is his mercy. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, earlier in the 10th canto, Lord Brahma has said, Tat tenu kampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam Vidvag vapurvir viditam namaste jivete ya mukti pade sadayabak. That if one is suffering setbacks in life, he can respond by blaming God, or more intelligently, he can respond in these three ways. First, by accepting this setback as a result of my own previous mistakes, my own karma coming back to me in a way I deserve and minimized by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Secondly, he sees that in spite of this setback, I am going to continue worshiping Krishna from the core of my heart with all of my love and all of my devotion. I will not be fazed by this setback. And finally, the devotee thinks, I know Krishna will be merciful to me. I know that Krishna will be revealing himself to me. I am certain that Krishna is there and is reciprocating with me in this way. And I fully expect Krishna's mercy. So these three things, taking responsibility, continuing our worship of Krishna, and expecting Krishna's mercy. This is how devotees respond to difficult situations. For such a person, Lord Brahma says, the kingdom of God becomes his inheritance. So Krishna is giving a similar idea here, that in the face of difficulties such as absence from Krishna, the devotee becomes refined in his or her devotional service. So now he addresses more specifically the gopis. Your love has left you unconcerned for mere morality, the Vedic rules, your schedules, and even family. I left you to increase your love, so please don't be upset. Did you believe that I could leave without extreme regret? A lifetimes of the gods would pass before I could express how deeply I appreciate the love that you possess. Since you've forsaken all for me, what gift can I give you? Your glorious devotion in itself will have to do. Isn't that amazing? Krishna is expressing so much love and appreciation for the gopis that he is unable to reciprocate it. And this is very significant for us this sentence, your glorious devotion in itself will have to do. This is an expression of which kind of loving exchange? It is one in which the devotee is giving love without condition. When the devotee is refined, the devotee comes to the point of giving love without condition. And that unconditional love itself is the highest reward that a human being can receive, the highest destination, the highest achievement, the highest accomplishment, the ultimate goal of human life, selfless love for Krishna. And therefore, Krishna says, there is nothing more than I can give you than what you already have in this selfless love for me. So this is how we can understand the divine loving exchange between Radha and Krishna. Radha gives all of her love, and Krishna reciprocates with feelings of ecstasy that make her in turn even more ecstatic, that make her give more and make him even happier, which makes him give more. This is called Nitya Yukta Upasate. The devotee gives to the Lord, and the Lord gives to the devotee, and the devotee gives more to the Lord, and the Lord gives more to the devotee. This is the unique loving exchange between Krishna and his parts and parcels. The gopis heard these charming words and, casting off distress, enjoyed themselves by touching Krishna's ample arms and chest. Those jewels among women, linking arms in great delight, began to dance with Krishna in Vrindavan's moonlit night. As they began the rasa dance, each gopi quickly found that she was all alone with Krishna, dancing round and round. On seeing Krishna multiply, his arms around each neck, the gods and goddesses above flew closer to inspect. Amazed, the gods beat drums and threw down flowers in cascades. Gandharvas and their wives sang out Lord Krishna's endless praise. The chimes of bracelets, anklets, and the bells strung from their waists resounded as the gopis danced with Krishna face to face. So this is where our pastime ends. We see Krishna dancing with the gopis. And you remember, what was their original purpose when they came out? Each one of them wanted to be with Krishna alone. And yet, excuse me, when they became proud, Krishna left them. So now Krishna returns to them. And because they have become unified and are working together in their feelings of separation from the Lord is pleased to fulfill each of their desires to give them his personal association. So this is true in so many contexts of spiritual life. For example, there are so many diverse religions in the world which proclaim a faith in God and pursue an expression of love and devotion for him. So these different religions often end up warring with one another, fighting with one another, because they don't understand the ability of God to reveal himself to different people in different ways at different times. It's the same person known by different names. God is not a Hindu God or a Muslim God or a Christian God, just as gold is not Hindu gold or Muslim gold or Christian gold. Gold is gold. Similarly, God is God. And all the diverse religions of the world can come together in serving God. Each of them will be individually perfectly fulfilled, just like the gopis. That is admittedly a very lofty ideal. But amongst ourselves, amongst the Vaishnavas, we can also understand the same thing. If we come together in our service for Krishna, we share our energy in making collective offerings to his lotus feet, he is pleased with that more than anything. And then each and every one of us can have the individual loving reciprocation that fulfills our deepest heart's desire. Each spirit soul of the countless, innumerable spirit souls has a unique way of pleasing Krishna. Isn't that a very godlike thing to do? If you were God, might you do something like that? Create countless expansions, parts and parcels, living beings, each of whom is empowered in a unique way to bring you joy and pleasure. This is how Krishna creates, or why Krishna creates all the living entities. So each one of us has a unique and distinct way to bring pleasure to Krishna. The whole process of bhakti yoga, the whole effort of self-realization is simply to bring to the surface what that unique propensity for pleasing Krishna may be. So this is the rasa dance. And at this point, when the gopis come together and work together, then Krishna discloses himself individually to each one, so that each one can fully express her unique love for Krishna. Radharani is herself the highest emblem of this devotion, this unconditional love for Krishna. And when Krishna sees the great love that Radharani has for him, he begins to wonder, what is that love that she feels for me? What is that like? And because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, he also wants to enjoy the bliss that Radharani feels in her love for him. Therefore, he comes as Lord Chaitanya. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Radha and Krishna coming together for the purpose of Krishna being able to taste and enjoy the love that Radharani feels for him. This was revealed to great devotees like Ramananda Roy and to all of us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna Varnam Twisa Krishnam, Sango Pangastra Parshadam. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, but he's also a Krishna. He is blackish, but he's also not blackish. He is golden in complexion. Krishna Varnam Twisa Krishnam, Sango Pangastra Parshadam. And he comes in Kali Yuga with all of his astras, with all of his Sango Pang Astra Parshadam. Together, with he and his associates, they perform Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar, the Harinam Sankirtan Yagya, the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In this way, Yajantihi Sumedasa. In this Kali Yuga, people are either extremely fortunate or unfortunate. That is, they can have the highest experience of love of Godhead very easily by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though they come from very fallen backgrounds, even though they have no pious credits, even though they have not ascended step by step the multi-lifetime struggle through the phases of Varnashram Dharma, they can still be blessed by Lord Chaitanya from any position to enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and taste this unconditional ecstatic love described in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. So for ourselves, we must know that nothing pleases Krishna more than making arrangements for his estranged parts and parcels to meet with him and reconnect with him in loving service. Each and every living being is a part and parcel of Krishna. It doesn't matter if they're Hindu, it doesn't matter if they're Westerner, it doesn't matter if they're Muslim, it doesn't matter if they're Christian, it doesn't matter who they are. When we look at others, we must see that they are Krishna's parts and parcels. And we must remember that Krishna would love to reconnect with them in loving devotion. And we who are blessed by Lord Chaitanya have this opportunity somehow or other to share with these living beings the ecstatic love of Krishna, the unconditional love, which is the perfection of human life. So whether it's by giving prasad or giving a book or simply saying Hare Krishna, somehow or other, encountering the person so that they can remember Krishna or think of Krishna, perhaps for the first time in their life, we are starting their spiritual journey. And you should know that, like, for myself as a young Westerner at age 18, looking for God, looking for answers, when I met the devotees and read Prabhupada's books, it brought me fulfillment far beyond my wildest expectations. And I'm so grateful to the devotees who set up that center in Portland, Oregon, and went out and did Harinam, where I met them, and it gave me the Sri Upanishad and fed me prasadam and brought me to the temple. That has changed my life. Now, remarkably, you know, our movement is presently not reaching a lot of the Western population, but it's important for each of us to understand philosophically that all these people in America, all these people in New Jersey, all these people around us, they're all Krishna's parts and parcels. They all have a loving relationship with Krishna that is dormant at the moment. So our ability to touch their hearts is really not up to us. It's up to Krishna. But if we make the endeavor, Krishna will reciprocate. So our vision should be very broad. Krishna consciousness is really for everybody. Everybody is Krishna's parts and parcel, regardless of their background. So the ability to see them as Krishna's servants and engage them in devotional service according to their capacity will bring us closer and closer to Krishna by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is what Srila Prabhupada did. You remember what he prayed on the pier in Boston. I don't know why you've brought me to this terrible place, he said. But if you like, you can make my words full of transcendental power to touch their hearts. Now make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. This is unconditional love. This is love that is given to others, even if they don't reciprocate. And today on Valentine's Day, this is a way that we can, in our own lives, enhance our devotional love for Krishna by this selfless devotional offering. Hare Krishna. So I will stop there. If there are any comments or questions, any thoughts or reflections on this section of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Before I open the floor for question and answers, may I request you to share the real quick, the quick snapshot of our programs coming up?
I'm not sure what you mean, Prabhu. The fixed snapshot of
the programs which are coming up the next week and following week. I can quickly show the website.
Yeah, of course. Please go right ahead. Of course.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so next Wednesday we'll be continuing the part 2, dealing with the devotees, dealing between the devotees with His Grace Ravi Lochan Das, and followed next Sunday we'll be having a class will be given by His Grace Basu Goshadas. The topic will be detachment via higher taste, and we also have the other programs, kids stories, and Friday evening Bhakti Vrikshas, and every Sunday school, and Bhagavad Gita reading every day afternoon, and then every day daily japa 6 to 8 a.m. So please take the advantage of it, and you can check the website for further details. So with that, let me open the floor for question and answers. So devotees, please raise your hands so that we can.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Krishna. So my question is, Ramshan Prabhu, you can stop sharing screen?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So at one point where Krishna mentioned of that I refrain from reciprocating to increase the love for Krishna, for myself, my devotees. So there's two questions. One is, that's kind of risky. Yes, for the gopis, maybe, but, and the pure devotees, but maybe somebody at Madhyam Adhikari level or so, if Krishna tests us so much then at some point one may say, well, he's not reciprocating, and we get caught in Maya or just get disappointed, depressed, whatever it may be. So my question is how to not give up on Krishna. He may not reciprocate, but we are not, most of the time we are not looking around. He still reciprocates, but just not the way we want him to reciprocate. Yes. So how do we stay focused and still keep giving him love?
I appreciate that question. I must share with you, I just had my second dose of the COVID vaccine, and the second dose makes you very sick. All day the next day I was completely feeling miserable. But now, that was just yesterday. Not today, all better. And now I know that I am now got some immunity for that virus that will be increasing. So in the same way, when we go through very painful difficulties, when they're over with, we have been vaccinated to them to a considerable degree. That pain that we went through will guide us in the future to either avoid making the mistake that led us to that, or to give us the courage to understand that if we go through some painful situation, like an injury or an illness or the loss of a loved one, we will survive it. Our Krishna consciousness will continue unrestrictedly, even though we're brokenhearted. So yes, you're right, it is a risk, but Krishna is rather selective who gets into the spiritual world. And by giving us these difficulties, he prepares us for that transition. Just look at King Yudhisthira, for example. In the whole first canto, Yudhisthira, from the 6th chapter on, much of it is about Yudhisthira, directly or indirectly. And in every single chapter, he is suffering, except one, when Parikshit is born. He's suffering after the war. He's suffering when Bhishma dies. He's suffering when Krishna leaves. He's suffering then when Arjuna returns from Dwarka. On and on and on. This is Krishna's very dear devotee, Maharaj Yudhisthira. But what is his feeling at the end of it all? He says, now I am done with this world. And he's ready to go directly to Krishna. His great devotee like Yudhisthira is subjected to that. What to speak of us? When the surgeon is doing his life-saving surgery, the first thing he has to do is cut. He has to cut the skin and the muscle and all the tissues to get to the diseased organ. So in the same way, Krishna has to make painful cuts because we are very much diseased by this material life. So just as we don't resent the surgeon, so why should we resent Krishna? And when that injury heals, we are vaccinated. We are prepared for going forward. It's said that Krishna will push us and push us and push us right to the edge of the cliff. And then he'll push us over the cliff. But he'll catch us on the way down. So the more we are being tested, the more we know that Krishna is showing his mercy on us, actually, and preparing us to actually leave behind this world of birth and death.
Thank you very much. I have a second part to this question, but before I go to the question, I just want to say that there was such a beautiful, beautiful narration, beautiful poem. It was very, very heart-touching. Thank you very much. And the way you narrated it also. So this same logic, can it be applied to a spiritual master where a spiritual master doesn't reciprocate, and to make the devotee more, bring the best out of the devotee, that I want to get my Guru Maharaj's attention, so I need to do. And again, there's a risk because many times as disciples or aspiring, we look for attention. And when we don't get that, some of them tend to move away because, hey, I'm doing so much service and not even the slightest. So can the same logic be applied there as well? Did Srila Prabhupada ever do that to his disciples?
Each disciple's relationship with their guru is unique. So there isn't one pat answer for everyone. Once in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada had appointed a sannyasi as the temple president. He was a rather mild-mannered, scholarly person. And then a new sannyasi came who had just taken sannyas, who was very charismatic and outgoing and dynamic. And so some of the devotees began saying, Srila Prabhupada, shouldn't this new sannyasi be our temple president? He's much more dynamic. So Prabhupada was not pleased with that. And he called the two sannyasis to his room. And he said to the new sannyasi, why are you staying here in Vrindavan? Sannyas means you should travel. Go out and travel and preach. Why are you staying here? And then he turned to the other one and said, and you stay here and manage Vrindavan. So the instructions of the guru are unique for each disciple. But I can tell you this, our purpose should be to please the spiritual master and not to enjoy the spiritual master. We feel very blissful when we're in the spiritual master's association, but the spiritual master feels very blissful when we're doing nice service, you see? One time, in my youth, we all aspired to have Prabhupada's Vapu association. That was the big desire. And on one occasion, I had that opportunity to serve Srila Prabhupada's lunch. So I came in Prabhupada's room. It was just him and me. And I thought, oh, this is the perfection of my service all these years. And I put the tray before him. He just looked at me and said nothing. And I waited outside. He rang the bell. I came in, picked up the plate. He looked at me and said nothing. I closed the door and I was thinking, wow, I've got a whole plate of Prabhupada's remnants. But just then the door across the hall opened. It was Brahmananda Swami, Prabhupada's 300-pound servant. He said, where's Prabhupada's plate? Took the whole thing. But anyway, I was so happy to get Prabhupada's association in that way. But then the next day, the devotee who had invited me to serve his lunch said, Prabhupada is asking, why are so many men staying back from book distribution to cook for me? So I understood that although for my spiritual sense gratification, I wanted Prabhupada's personal association, it was actually his instruction that was my way of reciprocating with him. Now, Srila Prabhupada had 4,000 disciples, and he once lamented, I cannot train them all personally. What can I do? I'm giving my instructions in my books. So some spiritual masters have many more times that number of disciples. Some have less. And this is the desire of the disciple, really. If the disciple feels they need a lot of personal association, then they should either take Diksha from a guru who has less disciples, or find a Siksha mentor who can help them. And most of us did not have Prabhupada's Vapu association, but on the strength of his instructions, we were able to feel satisfied in devotional service. So each devotee's situation is unique. And the fact that we don't hear from our spiritual master doesn't mean we're not pleased with, that he's not pleased with us, or he's not aware of us. And if we feel the need to express this, we should do so. We can write to the spiritual master and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. There's no need to answer my letter. I just wanted to let you know what I am doing and tell you that I'm thinking of you. And certainly the spiritual master will be very pleased to receive a letter like that. You know, my elder godbrothers in Prabhupada's presence told us that we shouldn't write to Prabhupada. He's so busy. He would answer every letter, but he was so busy, they asked us not to write to him, not to overburden him. So that was a certain set of circumstances. But now I feel like I could have written to Prabhupada in that way, and I advise others to do it, because it's our own chance to reciprocate. But we should know that the spiritual master is always praying for the well-being of all of his disciples. And although that may seem impersonal, he has accepted us, and therefore it is personal. That's my best answer. What do you think?
Beautiful answer, Prabhuji. Beautiful answer. Thank you so much. You know, just giving examples of pastimes with Prabhupada and real life just is 1,000 words in one sentence. So thank you very much. I do the same thing. I write to my Guru Maharaj at least once or twice a year, just telling him the services, and he always reciprocates, and I can tell that he's happy to hear that. Many times I tell devotees they're reluctant to write, but I say it's not about your glorification, but the spiritual masters do want to hear what, that what he's initiated you for is you're going ahead and spreading that. So yeah, don't feel shy too. Thank you very much for reminding me.
Thank you, Prabhu. Any other thoughts, comments?
Oh, just a real quick, in continuation to the first question, like you mentioned that Krishna will test and he will move forward until end of the cliff, and then that's the one thing. And I was also thinking like maybe the devotee also doing the not enough sadhana, then that is also a possibility, right? He cannot feel the real bliss. So how the devotee can really understand or anticipate that this, what I'm feeling the bliss, this is because of I'm not giving the enough sadhana practice, or if this is a part of Krishna's plan to elevate myself. So that's why I'm going through this this adaptive the miseries.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. As you know, there is an initial experience of bhakti that is characterized by relief from material distress and experience of transcendental bliss. That's what allows people to enter Krishna consciousness. But then there's a period of clearing where the anarthas are being removed, anartha nivritti. And during that stage, it may appear that we're not making as much advancement. So if I understand your question correctly, if we're not feeling that bliss, do we know that Krishna is reciprocating? So there's a beautiful verse in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita on this point. Krishna says that one who is not elated in the presence of illumination, nor hankering for it when it departs, is in the transcendental position. So this, one thing we can learn from this experience is that the bliss we feel may come and go, just like other kinds of happiness come and go. And it is not a deterrent. It should not be a deterrent to our service one way or the other. In the Nectar of Devotion, we read about Daruka, Krishna's servant, who was fanning him. And he was feeling so ecstatic, fanning Krishna, that he was praying, Krishna, please take away this ecstasy. It's interfering with my service because of the ecstatic symptoms that are manifesting in my body. You know, we read that in the Nectar of Instruction, there is enthusiasm and patience, but also determination required for complete success in Krishna consciousness. So determination kicks in when we proceed with or without the bliss. You know, bliss is up to Krishna. It's not in our control. It's not a mechanical process where we do our sadhana and we get bliss. So this is our kind of fruitive mentality that we carry from our conditioned life. I do this, I should feel that. See, I love Krishna, Krishna should love me. See, so we're approaching Krishna like a vanik, like Prahlad Maharaj said, like a businessman. Okay, Krishna, I've done my chanting, where's my bliss? See, so getting past that means determination. I'm going to chant no matter what I feel, blissful, envious, tired, discouraged, enthusiastic, doesn't matter. Chanting is my service. I'm doing that for Krishna because it's the most important thing. My father used to tell me, when you're loading the car trunk for a trip, be sure to put in the biggest suitcase first. Put in the biggest suitcase first, you can fit all the small ones around it. But if you put in the small ones first, the biggest one won't fit. Yeah. So if chanting and our service, that's the biggest thing in our life, we put that in first with determination. And then the rest of the things in our life, we fit around that. So it is not that something's wrong with us or with the process. It is the process to help us develop that determination. That's why chanting is the Yuga Dharma. You know, everything else comes from that. Just in conclusion, you remember Lord Chaitanya wrote, Ashlishyava padaratam panashtumam, adarshana marma hatam karotuva. You can be present or absent. You can make me feel ecstatic. You can make me feel miserable. These things are coming from Krishna. That's what we should understand. This is explained in 2 places in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 10 and 13. All the symptoms of knowledge, all the feelings that a human being has, they're all coming from Krishna. He's the origin of them, see? So if we're feeling discouraged, then we should know that that is coming from Krishna, and Krishna is testing our determination. Yeah. Okay? So the actual sustainable bliss comes when we pass all those tests. We are vaccinated for all those viruses. One of my godbrothers once asked Srila Prabhupada, once you start chanting, how long does it take to become purified? Interesting question, huh? And he said, Prabhupada thought for a minute, and he said, about 40 years.
Wow.
Yes, so it takes determination to chant our rounds every day for 40 years, yeah? Yeah. If we got paid by the hour, think how much money we could have made. all that time spent chanting. So, yes, we don't let if we're feeling something negative, it doesn't mean the process is not working. It just means we're going through a vaccination recovery day.
I was just wondering the same line, like one of the celebrated video, Prabhupada says, one devotee asked the question, then Prabhupada says, you needed 2 seconds. You are not reading Bhagavad Gita, something like that also it tells. That time he says 2 seconds.
Yes, that's true. We could become Krishna conscious in a moment, or it may take 1,000,000 years, right? Yeah, so this question was specifically about chanting. It's true, if we chanted without offense and with full concentration, every mantra would be ecstatic, yeah?
Yep.
But usually our mind is over here, over there, and we're not really hearing, and we're not chanting from the heart. You know, it comes and goes, it vacillates in and out. So Krishna is present every time we chant. He's dancing on our tongue.
Yeah.
But how ready are we to receive him? That's why we need the purification. This is why Krishna told the gopis, I went away just to increase your love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rohit.
Such a pleasure to meet you all.
Anyone else has any other questions on this topic? Please raise your hands. It's a great opportunity to Prabhuji.
Sorry,
until someone else asks the question, so Prabhuji, I have another question. So the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearance, like there are 2 things I heard like so far. Like one is Advaita Acharya was praying for the Mahaprabhu's appearance. And also in today's class also I hear that Krishna himself would like to experience the love of how the Radha is feeling the love. So that, like, there may be several reasons or like that, or it's only one reason that it may I was just wondering, like, is there like we keep hearing many reasons, but is there any specific reasons, or maybe reasons will be multiple for Mahaprabhu appearance?
Well, yes, the esoteric reason was so that he could taste Radharani's love for him. The exoteric, or the external reason, is because Advaita Acharya prayed for him, that the world was so degraded that he would have to come himself, Krishna would have to come himself. So he offered the tulsi leaves and prayed to Krishna to please appear. So both reasons are given, but the internal reason is because Krishna wanted to enjoy the mood of Radharani.
Oh, okay.
Krishna, Lord Chaitanya's, yeah, his appearance is predicted in several places in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj describes the incarnations and describes that he comes as the Chana avatar, the hidden incarnation in Kali Yuga. And in the 10th canto, that verse I mentioned, he's described Krishna Varnam Tvasa Krishna. 11th canto, excuse me, yeah. So anyways, yes, there are multiple reasons. Krishna fulfills multiple purposes when he comes, as you know. All right, I think we're questioned out. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Ramachandra Prabhu. And it's nice to meet you all.
We're very honored and blessed to have you with us today. And I hope